All right, so for the first part of your classwork today, you are going to be responding to the essential question of our whole module, which is how do stories help us understand immigrants' experiences? So in your classwork, I have 5 different answers that I already wrote for you, and I want you to delete all of them except for the one that speaks the most to you. All right, so which statement you feel answers this question best in your opinion? All right, so the first one says, stories help us to learn why people immigrate. Stories help us to learn how people feel about immigrating. Stories help us to learn about immigrants' experiences traveling to a new country. Stories help us to learn about traditions that immigrants bring with them to new countries. And finally, stories help us to understand why immigrants miss their homelands. So thinking about how do stories help us understand immigrants' experiences, which of these 5 statements do you think best answers that question? All right, that is the first part. All right, so this is your end of module task. This is your final writing piece for the end of module 3. And so I want this writing piece to be the best that you have written so far. And so first, we always go through what the writing task is. All right, so please follow along as I read aloud. Task: choose one of the situations below. Describe the moment from the point of view of the main character in the text. Base your narrative on what you have learned about immigration, traditions, and settling in a new home. Be sure to include dialogue and descriptions of the character's thoughts, feelings, and actions. All right, so immediately we know we need to describe the moment from the point of view of the main character in the text. So you need to pick, when you're looking through the different moments, you need to make sure that you want to be that character, right? So we'll take a look at that list of moments below. So again, point of view is from that character's perspective, how that character thinks or feels. Moving on, base your narrative. So we know that this is a narrative writing piece on what you have learned about immigration, traditions, and settling in a new home. So emphasizing, again, what you've learned so far in this entire module, right? And I've set this for your focusing question task 3 paper, the paper you just wrote. I want you to make sure that you use all the information that you've learned so far, from the timelines we did in Coming to America, from the audio interviews, and I'm actually going to have a list of previous classwork that you can refer to, specific which lessons to refer back to, so that you can go back and reread your notes on what you learned from the different interviews of real people, real immigrants who traveled from their home country to the United States, and what their experience was like, as well as what their experience was like after living here as an immigrant. All right. Also, this last sentence in our task, be sure to include dialogue and descriptions of the character's thoughts, feelings, and actions. I want you to be thinking back to those evidence organizers that we did a long time ago, where we had to pinpoint actions, thoughts, and feelings of Masako and grandfather when we were analyzing the text. So we need to make sure we include these details inside our narrative writing piece as well. Okay, and also not forgetting dialogue, right? The actual words that a character says, you need to include dialogue in this paper as well. All right? I know that was a lot, but we'll continue to break it down together. All right, so one of the moments that you can write about include these 4. So the first one says, grandfather staring out at the endless farm fields in America. So you can pick grandfather, grandfather's journey, page 9. So I'll have that image linked or attached to this classwork so that you can look through it and see which one you want to pick. And that's when grandfather first arrives in America and he's exploring for the first time. Masako on her first day at her new high school in Japan, Tea with Milk, page 8. We are very familiar with this page. We've looked at this image a lot. Carmen making tamales with her family. This is the family pictures. We just read excerpts or certain pages from this book. This is page 22, which is the cover illustration. And I'll have the text along with that image as well. Anna helping her mother and neighbors making the keeping quilt, which is the keeping quilt, page 20. All right, and I'm actually going to have all of these pages attached here, and I'm going to read them out loud to you again so that you can really listen again and see which character you want to be in this narrative writing piece. Okay, and then on the bottom it says support your response using evidence. So again, you can't make up a total random story like Masako on her first day at her new high school in Japan. You can't say that she was excited, super popular, because that's not true, right? The evidence from the text tells us that she didn't get along with people, and even no one would speak English with her, and even the teacher, right, who taught English refused to speak English with her. So making sure that you're staying true to the actual story is important, all right? So again, here's more text. Coming to America. There is no main character in Coming to America, right? And so you can take the knowledge that you learned from Coming to America and apply it to your narrative writing, but there's no specific character you're going to pull from. Okay. And as always, we have a checklist for success. So make sure you establish the situation or the narrative, you introduce the narrator or characters, you organize your events in a natural order, right, from beginning, middle, end, provide a sense of closure, use time words and phrases to tell the reader when events happen, right, including that anchor chart. And I want to say again, providing a sense of closure means that you are able to end your story with the understanding the character changed in some way or overcame something, right? That's where the want piece is, or the problem in the P in escape, right? It's again not necessarily a struggle, but it could be just what the character wants, and it doesn't have to be a physical item. It can be a feeling, right? As we talked about in Grandfather's Journey. Use details about immigration and finding a new home to create a realistic fictional narrative. Again, that's been kind of the theme of our text so far in this module, has been realistic fiction. Formally use regular, irregular, plural nouns, just making sure you're using the correct form of the word. An abstract noun, didn't really discuss it in this module, but basically any noun that it's not concrete like a physical object, but rather an idea, right? So like tradition isn't a physical object, but it's a culture of a group of people doing something together, right, for a very long time that's passed on, right? Or generation, right? It's a generation is when you have people who live during the same time period, right? And in families, right, when one has offspring or a child, right, then we move on to the next generation, the next period of time where another set of people live, and then so on and so forth. Like we talked about in Patricia's family tree, right? Patricia Polacco and the Keeping Quilt, and talking about the 6 different generations. So then moving on. Using verbs correctly, subject-verb agreement, and then using possessive. So the apostrophe S when you're talking about when a noun is possessing something. Like, for example, Miss Toma's phone, right? Miss Toma, apostrophe S, phone. All right, so that is your end of module task. All right, so here is your writing planner for your end of module task. So we just read through the task sheet, and you were supposed to pick one of the 4 moments. And so whichever moment you picked, I want you to write in the establish section, right? So for example, if you picked Masako on her first day at her new high school in Japan, Tea with Milk, page 8, then you can write that right here in this box, right? Because that moment kind of already orients our reader to the situation. So we know we're talking about Masako, we know that it's from Tea with Milk, we know that it's her in a new country and her first day in a new school, right? And so if you would like to add more to this section, please do so. If not, that's okay. You can just write the moment here. Now, S stands for the setting. So when and where does the story take place? So you need to make up the time of day. If you would like to start in the morning time, afternoon, whatever. And the where, if you did pick Masako, then you know where it would be. I don't want to give it too much away so that if you do pick it, it's in your own words. But again, I want to emphasize that this must be related to what's actually happening in the story. So Masako cannot be from Russia because we know Masako is not from Russia, or her family is not from Russia or lived in Russia. So it needs to be aligned with our text, right? But again, we're adding more details and we're making this realistic fictional narrative writing piece. As if we're just kind of adding a moment inside the text, okay? And so characters, who do you want in your narrative piece? And what do they want? All right. Then action, what events happen and how do the characters respond? So this is where you need to start planning what you want to happen in your story, thinking about, again, characters talking to each other, what the character wants. And again, you are the main character, so you are either grandfather, Carmen, Masako, or Patricia, right? What prevents the main character, which is you, from getting what he or she wants, okay? And then finally, the ending is the resolution to the problem, right? The sense of closure. So we want to end our narrative writing piece on some kind of realization that the main character goes through after whatever events took place in this narrative writing piece. Okay, so again, this is your planning sheet. It does not need to be complete full sentences. You can just write down ideas here, and I will be giving live feedback as you are writing. You're planning your writing piece here, because I really want us to do well on this last writing piece. I would like this piece to be something that you can proudly say you wrote during this time of remote learning, even though, you know, it's very difficult, to just write these pieces, let alone now you have to type it up. And so, but I do want us to really work hard on this paper, because this will showcase everything that you've learned in Module 3, right? What you've learned so far about immigration. And so, yeah, please make sure you are taking your time to plan it out. Don't just finish or write random words in here just to finish the assignment. Really think about what you want to write about and be creative in how you want to portray your character you picked, as well as other characters in your story. All right? All right, so the last part of today's lesson is something that I wanted us to just try. And I know it's something new. And it's something that actually is a good skill to learn now, because when you get older and in middle school, you will be utilizing Google Docs, and it's important to learn these skills. And why not learn them earlier now? Because we're here at remote learning and in third grade, and we're starting to get more and more savvy with Gmail and Google Classroom and Google Docs. So let's do this. All right. So what I want you to do is I want you to try to peer review or peer revise a friend or a classmate's writing piece. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share your focusing question task 3 writing piece. Okay. It should look something like this. This is my example. And shout out to Gervais because he is the only student who asked for this writing piece as an exemplar to help him write his writing piece. And I did include that in the lesson video, but I don't believe anyone else had caught on to that. So I know he is paying attention really, really closely. So shout out to you, Gervais, for taking your learning very seriously and also your writing. So I appreciate it. And so what I want you to do is, as I share someone else's writing piece with you, I want you to add some comments. So first and foremost, I want you to read through their writing piece, right? So you're going to just read through, and then after you're done reading through, I want you to look back at our checklist for focusing question task 3, and I'll have that attached to today's lesson as well. So I want you to review that, and then I want you to go back and reread again, but this time including some comments. So I'm going to try this out. Let's see if I can make my cursor glow. Aha, here we go. Okay. So right here, this little icon that looks like a speech bubble with a plus sign and says add comment, I want you to click this, okay? And wherever your cursor was before, you can add a comment there. So actually, I don't want to add a comment there. I'm going to say, I want to add a comment here. Let's say I think you can use a different word than asked. So I'm going to double click the word asked. So I double click my mouse. Then I'm going to go up here to the add comment. And I can just directly write, you could use another word, right? Questioned, maybe. Or you don't even need to write all that. You can even just write questioned. And then press post comment, and then you will see that the person who wrote the paper, your partner, will be able to read your comments, okay? And so you can just add whatever comments you'd like. If you think that something is unclear in their writing piece, or if you think that there's a better word that could be used in that instance, you can add that as a comment. Or if you think that they're missing something, like, oh, missing dialogue, you can also say missing dialogue in your comment. And so I want us to try to peer review each other's papers for focusing question task 3, not for your end of module. I just want you to peer revise for your previous writing piece that you worked on last week. And then I'm going to give you a separate grade for peer reviewing. And if we're really, really struggling, then I'll make it optional. But I really want us to try and see if we can do this, because I do want you to keep practicing reading each other's writing and to continue to grow as third graders moving on to fourth grade. And looking at what other writing pieces look like is going to also help you learn and grow as well in your own writing. All right. And so that's it for today. You have your classwork, the beginning part where you need to pick which answer resonates with you and answering the end of module or the module question, or essential question, I should say. And then you are planning your writing piece, you're picking your moment, you're rereading through that task sheet, and then I want you to peer review focusing question task 3, someone else's writing piece, okay? Let me know if you have any questions. I will be sending feedback for your end of module, and I feel like I had one more thing to tell you. Oh, yes. Let me get out of this cursor thing so it can be normal again. Here we go. And make myself bigger. All right. Hello. So I also want you to practice your vocabulary. Okay. So I want you to go to Quizlet. I want you to study your vocabulary, because we are going to have a practice round Wednesday, and then on Thursday we will have our actual vocabulary quiz through Kahoot. Okay, and so please study, because you will need to complete this vocabulary test. I am trying my best to figure out ways to still test you in your knowledge through these remote learning times. And those words actually that you are studying are also words that you should be including in your writing piece. So it's kind of a killing two birds with one stone. You're studying your vocabulary, and by studying your vocabulary, you know what important content-specific words to include in your writing piece as well. All right, so please study, because we will be having a vocabulary test soon.